So just how kid-friendly is trail days anyway? Have you heard about the new Garmin InReach Mini they came out with? And what do you do with your food in places like Max Patch, Balds on the AT? We're going to answer all that and more in this week's Q&A. Welcome back, hikers, to the channel Follow Bigfoot, where we are doing another week's Q&A here. We got about a dozen questions in store for you today, but first things first, Trail Days 2018 was a success. We had so much fun there, both me and Miss Bigfoot. We had an opportunity of being able to meet over 300 hikers. We did a couple meetups. We also had an opportunity to visit and film about 22 to 25 gear vendors, which was fantastic, hearing about a lot of the new things that are going on in the gear world. We posted most of all those videos on the channel. Hope that you've been liking the coverage. Also, we had an opportunity to do some hiker interviews and a lot more. Now, of course, the best part about Trail Days is meeting you. We had so many conversations with a lot of hikers, some that were through hiking this year, some that are through hiking next year, some that are just weekend hikers, maybe even just section hikers, but it was a blast being able to catch up with so many of you. We tried to spend as much time as we could talking with every single person that came up to us. So 2018 was amazing at Trail Days. I cannot wait for next year, 2019. Now, the first thing you might notice is what it looks like behind me with this little setup that we got going on here. Well, we just moved into our brand new house about a week ago. It was actually the day after Trail Days, and we're in the middle of unpacking everything, getting our house set up. So right now, this is just temporary. We'll see kind of how it evolves. I got some ideas for my studio room. I know we had a lot of great feedback on having the trees in the background, but we'll see kind of how everything rolls out, and you'll see some changes as we continue to progress here this year. But anyway, we're really excited about moving in our new house. We have some more space to be able to do things like this. I actually have a dedicated studio room, which I'm really, really excited about. On to the Q&A. You know, every week during the Q&A, I'm answering your questions. So all these questions from this week is pulled from the last Q&A, which was 2 weeks ago. We skipped last week because of all the Trail Days coverage. Now, in typical fashion, we highlight a beer of the week that I enjoy while I do my Q&A. This beer, it's called Dasani, water. It's actually a work day for me, and it's just early in the morning. I'm filming this because I really needed to fit this in before I went to work, and I couldn't find any other time. So no beer on this week's Q&A. We'll bring it back for next week. Now, if you have a question for me about anything related to the outdoors, through hiking, Trail Days, whatever it might be, throw it in the comments below. I'll do my best to answer as many questions in next week's Q&A as I can. Considering a short jaunt on the Superior hiking trail next year, what's your favorite pick for a 3 to 4 day hike? Starting and ending points, time of year, etc. Love the channel. For 3 or 4 days, of course, it depends on how many miles that you're thinking about hiking, but what first comes to mind is hiking in between the state parks. What I would do is I would park at Gooseberry Falls. I would take the shuttle up to Tetegooch, and then I would hike south from Tetegooch all the way back to Gooseberry. Really easy. You won't have any issues with finding parking. You do have to make sure that you have a state parking sticker, and then of course you'll have to pay for the shuttle. Now, the information on the shuttle service I'll put below in the show notes. In terms of time of year, I would try to stick towards the fall. That's the best time of year. The changing of the colors, change of the season, and you won't have to deal with all the bugs. The middle of the summer will be the absolute worst time for bugs. Now, in terms of a day hike, I highly recommend the Bear Bean Lake Loop. It's the most beautiful area of the Superior hiking trail, easy to access, and you can do everything in one day. Is the American Discovery Trail not a national trail? Well, technically the American Discovery Trail is a national trail, but it's not a national scenic trail. So no, it is not a national scenic trail. I'm getting into hiking this year, having a hard time finding a good boot or shoe. The problem is I'm a true Bigfoot. I need like a size 16 or 17. Any info would be greatly appreciated. After doing a little research online, seems like a really good place to go to is 2bigfeet.com. Looks like they specialize specifically just in large sizes, everything from 14 on up. So I would check out 2bigfeet.com. Now, if anyone has any other recommendations, please place those below in the comments for all of us to hear and learn. What are your thoughts on protein shakes and bars on the trail? Yes, on the protein bars. I love RX bars. It's my favorite protein bar, and that's what I typically carry in the backcountry, but I normally don't do protein shakes. I've done them maybe like a handful of times, and that's about it. How kid-friendly is Trail Days? You mentioned how Tent City is, so I'm wondering if it gets crazy or if my kids won't be learning bad things. Thanks. In the main section of Trail Days, which is the town park area, it is very kid-friendly. You're not going to see any crazy things going on during that area. I never have. You might see some crazy looking characters, but you won't see any crazy things going on during that area. The place that you really want to worry about is in Tent City, which I wouldn't recommend taking your kids into. And really in Tent City, it's back in the woods where all the party and craziness goes on. If you actually stay in the field, it'd probably be just fine. You might hear some things, but it's not going to get overly crazy in that area. So if you stay away from Tent City, keep your kids in Town Park, you'll be totally good. I was wondering if you've had a chance to look at the new Garmin InReach Mini. If you have, what's your opinion of it? So sometime within the last month, Garmin had a cool little surprise for us and announced their new Garmin Mini, which is very similar to the Garmin InReach Explorer, which I've been using for the last 2.5 years. I love this device for a couple different reasons. The biggest reason is the ability to be able to have two-way back and forth text messaging between me and whomever I'm messaging. Typically it's family and the fiance. But the problem with this is it's a little heavy. It comes in at 6.9 ounces on my scale. Well, they've taken the Garmin InReach and they downsized it. The new one only weighs 3.5 ounces and it's about half the size, maybe a little bit over half the size. Now the price is $350 right now, which if you buy the older Garmin InReach, this thing is going for below $300. I think it's somewhere in that $200 to $250 range. But if you buy the newer Garmin InReach, it's actually a little bit more expensive than the Mini. Now, after doing a little bit of research on the regular size Explorer compared to the Mini and what things change, turns out there's not a ton that changes. You're going to get a little less battery life with the Mini and the navigational features, but other than that, the Mini either has the same functionality or exceeds. Like one of the cool things that I read is I can sync my Fenix 5 with my Garmin InReach Mini, which is pretty sweet because I always bring my Garmin Fenix 5 with me out on the trail. Now, one thing I need to find more about is the subscription service. Can I transfer my subscription service from my Garmin InReach Explorer regular, the SE version, to the Mini? Right now, I'm in the middle of a 12-month commitment that I made with Garmin for their annual subscription. Now, I'm assuming that you can, but that's one thing that I need to ask Garmin myself. But either this upcoming thru hike, the TMB, or for sure when I get on the Superior hiking trail later in the fall. So stay tuned for more on that on the channel. Any plans on doing the Camino? Plans, yes and no. If you consider plans like I'm in the middle of actually planning to hike it here in the near future, no. But do I have plans? Is it in the cards sometime down the trail? Yes. I would love to do the Camino. I probably need a little bit more time off than what I can normally get off with my current job. So until maybe someday when I can do this a little bit more actively, then that would be definitely a trail that I would love to do. It's something that definitely attracts me just because of the culture behind the El Camino. On a place like Max Patch, where there are no trees, what do you do with your food bags? Good question. All right, well, let's talk about that with a couple different scenarios. So first one, if you have a bear canister, which some folks are carrying out on the AT, then that solves your problem. Second, if you're like most hikers, you probably don't have a canister with you. You have some sort of bear bagging setup, or you might even have the Ursack. In those cases, the best advice that I can give you is to try to camp somewhere closer to the tree line and then just making the extra walk down, hanging it up, and then walking back up to your campsite before you go to bed. So that's the best advice that I can give. Now, I read quite a bit of threads online about this, and the hangers out there typically would do just that. They would try to camp a little bit closer to the ridgeline and then walk back down, hang it, and then walk back up to their campsite. Now, the third scenario, which is the scenario that probably happens the most, and one that I do not recommend, which is sleeping with your food. You know, if you're not walking down to hang up your bear bag, you really don't have any other options. You can't bury your food, and there's no place to hang it. So That's something that I think most hikers are probably doing out there. And, there is an element of risk if you're doing that. Okay, I'm looking for a UL pack for the JMT. I really have 2 years before I absolutely need a new pack. Here's my dilemma. Buy the Arc now and enjoy it for 2 years before I hike the JMT, or should I wait and use my current packs because something better might be coming out and I'll want that one? What should I do? I would wait because there is always something new that's coming out with technology. Packs will probably get a little bit lighter. They'll continue to evolve the materials, and who knows where we'll be at 2 years from now. So I'd probably save yourself a little bit of money and go with it maybe a year and a half from now and start kind of looking again. But if you're doing a lot of hiking right now, you're trying to cut weight, then I might think about buying it right now because you can really take advantage of having that pack and put it to use for 2 years before the JMT. So it really kind of depends on what your situation is, but you might want to wait that year and a half or so and start looking again just to have what's the best out there if you're looking at some line of pack with that. Because I'll tell you one thing, Zpacks will probably be coming out with another new style or a new design of pack 2 years from now. How long did it take you to feel comfortable reading a map in the field? Do you consistently refer to a map in order to calculate destination times, etc.? And how do you factor in elevation gain in that? It took me a little while to get comfortable with maps in the field. Maps were really introduced to me when I started to do my annual trips up to the Boundary Waters, the BWCA, up in northern Minnesota, and that was about 15 or so years ago. Every year we go up there, we'd have to buy the different maps to the area that we'd be doing our trip in, but I started to get more familiar each and every year with mapping. Now, most of the time when I'm on the trails, I'm on popular trails that I don't have to get some of the paper maps to be able to navigate. I use Guthook's app, which is a fantastic resource of being able to help navigate, find out where you're at, what your elevation is. If you're lost and you need to navigate back to the trail, you can use the app in airplane mode so you don't have to be connected to cell data. It's just a fantastic resource. But there are a lot of trails out there that Guthooks doesn't support, either because they don't have the rights to be able to do that or they just haven't gotten to it yet. Most recently, I hiked the Ozark Trail, and I use paper maps for that. But if I'm on a trail that's supported by Guthooks, I'm definitely using Guthook's app. Now, in terms of calculating distances, things like that, I do use Guthook's app, but that's more towards the end of the day to figure out what my total mileage is. I use my Garmin Fenix 5 to calculate the distance that I'm hiking, the speed of which I'm hiking at, calories, all that kind of stuff. I use the GPS, so I actually turn the GPS function on so I also can have that breadcrumb trail using this and being able to have just a secondary GPS device that I use on me outside of just using my Garmin InReach. But I love the Garmin Fenix 5. I do have to charge it each and every day, but it's something I'm totally okay with because I love having all of that data and leveraging technology out there for my hikes. Now, speaking of elevation, I do refer to Guthook's app or the maps just to kind of get an idea of what the elevation profile looks like, how much I'm going to be hiking, and I usually do that before I start hiking on the day. Now, using Guthook's app, because the feature on this is really easy, I look at wherever the destination I'm trying to get to, figure out what the mileage is and what the total ascent is, the total elevation that I'm ascending. Then I divide the two. So I take my total elevation divided by miles to give me what is the average amount of elevation I'm climbing per mile. If I'm climbing more than 200 feet per mile, it's probably going to slow down my pace. 250 to 300 feet per mile, those are AT-like conditions. I'm probably going to be doing a lot of climbing that day, especially kind of the break even for me was 5,000 feet. If I'm climbing more than 5,000 feet over 20 miles, that ends up being a pretty big day in terms of elevation climb. So it really kind of depends on what the elevation looks like, how much I'm climbing. Now, if I'm climbing like 150 or so or less, then I know my pace is probably going to be a lot faster and it's not going to be as difficult of a trail to hike. That's our last question, so that wraps up our questions for this week's Q&A. 2 weeks ago, I mentioned about a gear giveaway that I'm doing for anyone that signed up for it on the last Q&A. We're going to do that sometime early next week. I got all the information together. Of course, Trail Days just got in the way. That's why we haven't given away. So we will do a dedicated video and give that box away. Actually, I got it right here. I can show you. Just a moment. All right, this guy right here. So it's another nomadic box. So early next week, we'll be giving this thing away. All the t-shirts, If you haven't had your chance to pick up an Alda t-shirt yet, the time is running out. The campaign for the Alda t-shirts is going to come to a close at the end of day on Friday. If you have an opportunity, I strongly encourage you to come over, check it out. I'll put a link below on how you can get your t-shirt. Now, this money that's going towards the National Scenic Trails is being focused on trying to nudge legislators to secure rights of way of over 4,000 miles of our National Scenic Trails that aren't currently connected. Long story short, we're trying to connect these 4,000 miles of trails, but the only way we can do that is to secure the rights of way so that we can have our treadway back and connect the rest of these trails. So if you enjoy our trails or just enjoy hiking in general, I strongly encourage you to support this campaign. And lastly, we're 2 weeks away from the Tour de Mont Blanc in Europe. I am so stoked for this hike. I don't know where all the time has gone here the last 2 or 3 months. I feel like I just got off the Ozark Trail like last week. So it's going to be so sick. I cannot wait. I talked with Matt from Zpack, which has done the tour 2 different times. Of course, I get to reconnect with my German friends that I hiked with on the Appalachian Trail, Pacemaker and White Walker. It's going to be a blast. I'll talk more of that as we get a little bit closer and try to see if we can figure out a way to upload some videos while I'm out in Germany so you guys don't have to wait so long to see it when I get back. We are going to do a meetup in Germany as well. I'm still trying to figure out when and where, because obviously I really don't know much about Germany, so I'll be leaning towards the Germans. And the comments below. So if you're living in Germany and there is a place more near Frankfurt, because that's where I'm flying in and that's where I'm flying out of. So it will be easier if we do it either in the beginning or towards the end of my 2-week or 17-day trip to Germany. So the dates is going to be somewhere between June 16th and June 30th, somewhere around that. Well, that about does it. Thanks for stopping by. Stay tuned for many more sightings and get out there and take a hike.